Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and we are going to be talking about executive assistants. And I'm going to use this term synonymously with one also called a virtual assistant, a VA and an EA. But really, they're just the same thing. It depends on the geography of where they're located to do the job. In this episode, we are going to be talking about both type of offices. I work with a lot of executives, and I am always shocked to find that with those executives who have enterprise offices or maybe large corporations where they have a lot of employees, and I ask them, who is your assistant? Who is your executive assistant? They just point to a myriad of different people, and nobody has one real defined task. And that is because that executive has not pinpointed one person who does nothing but facilitate their needs. Instead, they think the more employees they have, the less need there is for an executive assistant. And I don't think that's true at all. I think by not having an executive assistant, especially if you're running a mid to large size corporation, you're doing you and your team a dramatic disservice. Also, for the solo practitioners out there that are in the RIA space or maybe at a BD, if you don't have a dedicated assistant that is just sit there to facilitate your needs, then you're probably doing you a disservice as well. As most of the listeners out there in the TPR Nation know, this podcast was started kind of as a joke because we were so tired of people claiming to have expertise, not really understanding or knowing what it was like to sit across from a client. They really didn't have an industry level experience of what it's like to be a financial advisor. And then, of course, it has grown to this incredible nation of financial advisors that have said, yes, I am advocating for this. I want to deliver more value to my clients. I want to spend more time outside of the office and less time playing office. And I want to be highly profitable in the process because we have a financial responsibility to everyone that we interact with to be profitable. We have a responsibility to our clients to remain in business. We have a responsibility to our family to bring home a certain level of income. We have a responsibility to the goods and services that we purchase that we're actually going to have the money to pay for those. And it's not just going on credit card debt. So being profitable is not a negative thing. It is a responsibility that you have as a business owner. And most financial advisors, even if you're in an enterprise office, a lot of times it's kind of a hybrid experience. A lot of us are still in charge of our own marketing, our own prospecting, our own expenses, and all these kind of other things that come with being a business owner. So whether you started the practice or you're the financial advisor coming into a practice that's already set up or setting out on your own, we are all small business owners in some capacity. And so we have to think like a business owner. And having an executive assistant is probably one of the very first things that we recommend to somebody when they come up to us at a conference. And they say, listen, my practice is just like yours. And they say that either to Shalansky & Associates, where we have a mass enterprise office, or they say it to Matthew Jarvis, where he has 2 financial advisors in his office, himself and one other. And so when they compare it and they say it's just like ours, and they say, what are the most things that we could do in order to replicate success? How can we become even more efficient this year? One of the very first questions that we will ask you is, do you have an executive assistant? Have you hired somebody to facilitate making sure your needs are taken care of so that you can maximize the level of productivity? And we are shocked at how many people tell us that, well, yeah, I kind of have, or they start listing all the different employees in their office. It is a yes or no question. Do you have an executive assistant? Do you have a virtual assistant? Do you have one person that you pick up your phone and instantly message, and that is who goes to facilitating to make sure your needs are met professionally? So in today's episodes, we are going to talk about, in Worlds to Conquer, how we should define what an executive assistant does and their role. And then 2, whether or not you need somebody full-time, fractional. Is this a VA? Is it an EA? Again, I'm going to use this term synonymously. I think an executive assistant is a full-time person that is 100% dedicated to just facilitating what is required by you as the executive. A lot of times when I think of a VA, virtual assistant, I'm thinking of somebody who's fractionally working with you. Maybe you don't need a full-time person just yet, but you do need somebody assisting you. All right, so let's dive into the EA, Executive Assistant. Okay, TPR Nation, if you haven't guessed already, I can be a bit controlling. I'm very direct. I'm blunt. I like to get things done in a certain order. And with that comes an element of control. I want my life to operate in a certain rhythm. And in order to make that happen, I need to make sure I'm hyper aware of the details that have to get done. Or as one of our Invictus members shared with the team, I am very intense. And little did I know that might not have been a compliment until our good friend Libby over at Efficient Advisors told me how wonderful it was that I let it roll off of my back. Until that very moment, I started laughing hysterically because I thought intense was a positive thing. I thought it was a good thing. This is about life-changing actions so that you can multiply the effect that you have on this world that you are living in. And so, intensity, hell yes, that should come with the territory. It should be intense. The things we do should be intense. And so when I was having this conversation with one of my leads at Shalansky & Associates, she said to me, Jamie, do you think you're at the point that you need to get an executive assistant? And I looked at her and said, absolutely not. Who would possibly know how to do all of these details? An executive assistant should be able to run my schedule things, have access to my credit card, do my travel, do email delegation, make sure I am where I'm supposed to be, and deliver the high touches. There's no way on earth another person is going to be able to do it the way that I could do it. And she said, oh, okay. And we just sat there in silence. And I self-recognized that was my ego. That was my ego. I am not the only person clearly on the planet who knows how to book travel. That's just not a reality. I'm not the only person in the world that knows how to run a schedule. I'm not the only person in the world that knows how to deliver a high touch to either a client, a friend, or a center of influence. And as soon as she gave me the opportunity to sit with it, I started to reflect and said, wow, this is egomania at its best. This is just me thinking I'm so exceptional that I'm the only one who can do all of these things. And that's not true. There are other people who can really thrive in doing these tasks. And guess what? And this was a huge surprise for me. These weren't chores for them. These were purpose. These were the things that they wanted to go and do. And once I came to that recognition, I said, okay, it's definitely time to get an executive assistant in place. I did not go the VA route, except for my executive assistant did not live in Anchorage at the time. They were down in the States. We hire a lot of military spouses. That's one big thing we're at Shalansky & Associates we're passionate about, is that with our military members, oftentimes their spouses are left without a flourishing career because they have to travel so much, because they're constantly moving from base to base. That's something that we really wanted to change. And if we find people with good grit, good attitude, and team perspective, we want to keep working with them regardless of where they're located. So my executive assistant was virtual for a time. They have since moved back to Alaska. But this is a position that I don't care if you do work from home. I'm also a big advocate of the Mom Group. That is an affiliation that will hook you up with other moms that want to do part-time work. I think that's an underutilized resource across multiple industries because we think of moms as being hyper distractive because they have to drop the kids off, they have to pick them up, they have to make sure the house is clean, they have to do all of those things. But most of the moms I know who gave up flourishing careers in order to be stay-at-home moms, once their kids go to school, they get incredibly bored for 4 to 5 hours out of the day. They have nothing to do, and they want to feel a sense of purpose. They want to feel a sense of contribution to their family, and they want to go and earn money. So this is an incredible resource. Please let us know at lifestyle@theperfectria.com if you'd like a recommendation to how to start scouting for people that are either in the virtual space offering assistance, or if you want somebody that's a part of a mom group that maybe you just need on a part-time basis. So when I hired my executive assistant, it started as a part-time position, but I'm laughing because anyone who knows Shalansky knows that the more aptitude you have, the more ability that you have to successfully do work, the more work will come your way. We're so encouraged by that we're like, absolutely, let's do 17,000 other different things. So I started my EA off, my executive assistant, and she is fantastic. She is definitely the reason that I am able to flourish in my career today. And one of the challenges that we'll talk about in future episodes that I gave her was that I want her to start leveling up her skills so that she is prepared for the woman that I'm going to be in 5 years. Not the woman I am today, the one I'm going to be in the next 5 years. She has to level up her skills because as I level up mine, as my my world expands, as I take on more world domination activities, she's going to have to increase her productivity and efficiency levels as well. So we are both going to rise in this enterprise together, and that's really important to me. So when I brought her in, I do own several different businesses, and my primary focus is on financial advisory services out of running Shalansky and Associates, our RIA in Anchorage, Alaska. And when I brought her in, I said, okay, here's a limited scope. Here's what I want you to start working on. And what I've realized in doing so was that those little tasks that, yes, I am 100% capable of doing, once I was able to relinquish those and give those little tasks to her, it opened up so much more time in my schedule, and so much more time in my schedule to do the work that somebody else can't do, that somebody else cannot get done. And when I recognize that, then I can dedicate my focus time to doing that type of work. But then also, she has afforded me the opportunity to buy back parts of my day that otherwise would have been spent doing these type of tasks. So as I shared with you before, I think time is the greatest equalizer in the entire planet. We all are born, regardless of where we are, regardless of circumstance or education or experience, we all have the same amount of time. And so do I have time in my day to do these small little tasks? Sure, I have about the same time she does. But in doing these small little tasks, or little tasks that I think, which are big tasks to her, I am going to sacrifice something. Something has to give up. So if I'm booking my own travel, then that's 20 or 30 minutes that I'm not spending with my family. That's 20 or 30 minutes that I'm not spending in education or development or reading or doing something of a critical interest to me, because I've given that time up. So the first thing that I did when I hired her was I spent 2 weeks before analyzing critically all of my day. I wrote down in a diary all of the things that I did. And so when it began with, I get up and check my email because I have so much email that it just blows my mind. That was a huge time suck for me. Email was a huge vortex that I wasn't able to work my way out of. I don't know when the last time I ever saw the little icon that comes up that says, good work, you're all done here in Gmail. I was bombarded, and it was solicitations, it was invitations, it's center of influence. And then it was a handful of clients inside of my email, but I couldn't even see them for the light of day because I had all of these other activities. And email was one of the most difficult things that I had a challenge with giving up because I knew how important it was. This is how clients were reaching out to me. This is how centers of influence were reaching out with me. I work with a lot of attorneys, and court systems have deadlines. So what if I miss something? What if I'm not at my A game? What if I don't see a communication and it was, something that got archived? I was really concerned about handing over my email, but I also couldn't see the light of day of getting out of my email. How many times have you logged into your inbox, you've sorted through what you think is all of the junk, and then you've archived it, moved it around, and you've got probably 24 real critical emails that you want to get back to? And critical doesn't mean deadline sensitive or money sensitive, although maybe some of them were, but some of them could be a center of influence. Some of them could be a client asking what they should do with an inheritance. Somebody could be a public speaking event that they want you to come at and that you want to give a little more attention or time to. Somebody could be a resume that they wanted you to put in front of you to get you consider them because we're actively hiring at Shalansky and Associates. There were a lot of important emails that I looked at and I said, okay, I've got all this junk out, plus you're answering things, you're going one by one, plus you're doing your tasks, plus you're in and out of meetings. It was the most disorganized way to be unintentional about the work that I was doing inside my inbox. How many times have you had that similar experience, got to the end of your day and said, oh my gosh, I never got back to them. That email's going to take me, 30, 45 minutes of research, and then I owe them a dedicated response. You know what? I'll do it tomorrow. And then guess what happens tomorrow? It's like a hydra. You cut off one freaking head, and then all of them come back and flourishing inside of your email inbox. And now I have twice as many emails to go through. So I had to write it down. Email was a big thing that I was going to have to give up. I review a lot of contracts. I do a lot of negotiation in my role just to make sure clients are taken care of, centers of influence are taken care of, prices for different businesses that I'm looking at. Contracts was something I was not willing to give up because I didn't know how to teach that skill set to an executive assistant. So that stayed on my list. All right, meetings meetings were something that I kind of was middle on the road about. There were two types of meetings. There were meetings that I was having with people in the industry, centers of influence, and people trying to get in front of me, wholesalers, etc. So there's those type of meetings. And then there were powerful meetings where I was meeting with a client or I was meeting with somebody that was going to leverage our business in one way or another. And so I wanted a way to make sure I was in the meetings that I was supposed to be in and that I was scrubbing anyone else that had a demand for my time. And so meeting was another big one that I said, you know what, I could be in half of them, but I could probably give up about half of these meetings. Then there were a ton of business operation activities that I was also involved in. Between all the companies that I am actively engaged in and a part of, I have almost 100 employees. That's a lot of work anniversaries, and that is a lot of birthdays to have to remember to get something out and make sure we're doing those high touches in order to have low turnover rates and really have high retention rates with employees. So I like to actively do a lot of those type of things. And so that was something that was taking up a lot of time. 100 people outside of your family and friends to have to remember when they started working for you and when their birthday is, etc. That's a lot. So that was something that I could probably delegate and give to somebody else that could help me deliver a high touch, but maybe I wasn't so actively involved in. Another area that was taking up a ton of my time was discerning which continuing education conferences that I wanted to go to that year. And deciding on a conference is important to me because I don't want to be habitual. I don't want to always go back to the same conference, the same impact, the same retreat, and really not have an opportunity to learn other things. And so I like to bounce between different venues. Now, the way that I choose conferences that I want to attend or any continuing education program that I want to attend, because a lot of them are still on virtual, is that I take whatever theme I'm trying to learn that year. So a lot of times we choose our conferences because we have FOMO, we have fear of missing out. And so we want to go where everyone else is going to be also because we're so terrified of missing on some piece of information because financial advisors do not openly share all of the concepts that we talk about here at the Perfect RIA. That is one of the reasons that prompted us to do our own summit. So we got a hold of Stephen Jarvis, the lead CPA over at Retirement Tax Services. You know, I absolutely love the work that he does with financial advisors, helping them understand tax planning for their clients so they can really deliver tax planning value. And we said, hey, let's do a summit. We're always interested in ways that we can improve our efficiency and also give financial advisors a space where they can concentrate on tax planning. So September 27th through the 29th in Las Vegas, Nevada, we're going to do a 2-day program for financial advisors and their team members. And as everything that we do, this is going to be actionable advice that you can get up out of your chair and figure out how to plan for. So if you're interested in signing up for that, make sure you go to theperfectria.com. It's going to be a limited venue. We're not interested in thousands of people. We want to keep this really intimate so that we can deliver as much value as possible. This is the biggest bang for your buck you're going to get in the industry because we're going to have a full day of tax planning and then we're going to have a full day concentrated on Perfect RIA values and how we can really level up and 4X your business. So I'll look at conferences all over the industry as well as outside of our industry and I say, okay, what am I going to work on this year? Is it body language? Is it negotiation? Is it learning more about tax planning? What are these areas that I really want to be hyper focused on this year? And then I'll tell my EA, okay, go find me every single conference, every single venue that is in this particular category of what I want to learn about this year. And so they'll go filter through and find all that information for me, get the pros and cons, get the dates, times, and locations. And as long as those venues are outside of Surge, I can start looking and circling, all right, this is the one that I want to go attend. Please make this happen. And so I will go through her list. I'll highlight the 3 or 4 that I want to go to because we want to always be in a perpetual state of learning. And then I'll hand it over and she will go register me for the event. She'll make sure she takes care of all the logistics and she'll book the hotel room. She will make sure that I have dinner reservations every single night we're there. And she'll also see who else is attending. So if I want to make a high, powerful connection, we also have a dinner reservation with other attendee members. Another beautiful thing about having an executive assistant is that there are 2 types of people, 2 attitudes when it comes to food. Those are those that live to eat and those to eat to live. I love food. I love restaurants and chefs and really culinary infusions. And so I give a list of requirements to my executive assistant about what I'm looking for. No chains, has to be organic, scratch kitchens preferred, white linen tablecloths. I want the executive chef's name on the menu for the nights that I'm traveling. Why? Because that's an experience for me. And if I'm going to be traveling outside the state and I'm going to be away from my family and my businesses and doing those things, then I want to make sure I have those type of experiences. Likewise, we also look for things that entertain us. Maybe that's mountain biking or ATVing. I just wrapped that up after attending the Black Swan event here in Phoenix, and my son came down and attended it with me. It was fantastic. Highly recommend if you have not read Never Split the Difference, you need to. And after the conference ended, instead of flying back the very next day, we wrapped the conference up and then we spent a day playing in the Tonto National Forest here in Phoenix, Arizona, and went ATVing. It was phenomenal. So not only did we have a powerful education event, but afterwards we gave ourselves time and space to play and have those ideas that really reinforce that we learned through the Black Swan Conference. One of the things that I cannot stand is I see financial advisors unfortunately do this a lot, is that we'll wrap up a conference and halfway through the conference on that second day, because that last day is always a half day. And so at that half day, they'll roll their luggage right down to the meeting, because as soon as that meeting wraps up, boom, they're on an airplane and they're gone. What an absolute waste of a conference. Why did you even go down there? You went down there to learn some new ideas, to hopefully get at least one new implementable idea from that venue or from a connection that you made at that conference. And then the only opportunity that you've left yourself with is to immediately leave, get on an airplane and rush home, where you will either, one, go straight to work implementing all of the ideas that you were just thinking of, probably not going to happen, or two, you're going to rush home, want to implement all the ideas that you've been thinking of, but guess what? Life is still happening. Your spouse still needs your help. There are things that happened while you were gone that they need attention to. You're going to have to help with the kids, with the parents, with the household, with the dogs, with all of those honey-do chores that comes in being a responsible partner inside of a relationship. And so therefore, you won't implement any of the ideas that you just talked about, because now you're losing that momentum. You're losing that energy in order to get those things done. And so I'm a big fan of, as soon as an event wraps up, that you take some isolated time. Maybe you stay in a hotel room. Maybe you do some Airbnb, but you give yourself some space. Give yourself some space to implement the ideas that you just learned about, that you want to execute on. And so when I'm doing things like this, my executive assistant knows exactly what I'm expecting, and therefore now has a really good idea about my travel days. Another thing, when I'm traveling to a conference, the day I'm leaving to the conference, if I'm going to be catching an airplane, even if that airplane is at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I do not want to have meetings booked for me. I don't schedule me with back-to-back meetings and then I am flying out of the house trying to get to where I need to be. So I really want that executive assistant to be the guardian of my calendar, to make sure that these logistics are happening the way that I want them to be. Now, there's no magical way for her to know that unless I have articulated and documented them. If it's not documented, it is not done. And if I haven't documented it and something ends up happening, I don't have a ride at the airport. My Airbnb code isn't inside of my calendar, so I don't know how to get into it. I don't know where the venue is going to be for the conference. If I haven't articulated exactly what I expect to be where I want it to be, then that is on me as the executive. I use TripIt when it comes to travel. TripIt, it's an application that you can download on your smartphone. It will link inside of Google, so it takes all of my stuff and puts it inside of Google for me. So I know every second of every day exactly where I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be there with, and what I'm supposed to be prepared for. This is really critical for me in order to run as efficiently as I need to do. But my executive assistant, as much as I love her and as great as she is, she's never going to know that. I had to create for me what I refer to as a travel writer, and that travel writer tells exactly what airlines, what seat I want to be sitting in, what's my plan B if that seat is not available, what are the flight times that I want, what is the credit card that I use. Anytime I'm making a decision, I'm writing it down so she no longer has to guess at what I want. And I give her best case and plan B case, because sometimes best case doesn't always exist, and I don't want her panicking that she doesn't know what else to do until she learns how my discernments. If you're really not great at policy writing or writing documents, that's totally okay. Open up Loom, L-O-O-M, and record a video and say, hey, listen, here, I'm going to do screen share with you. Here's what I want. Here's why I want it. Now you have reference to this to go back and watch it anytime I want to make a decision. So anytime you're making a decision that didn't absolutely have to be you involved in it, then that is something that you can give over to an executive assistant to take care of. My executive assistant takes care of a lot of my work stuff, but also my household stuff. stuff. So there are things that I just want done. I need a fence put in. So I'm going to take a picture of it. I'm going to open up Google Chat and I'm going to assign it over. And I'm going to say, hey, listen, I need a fence put in this particular space. Go get me 3 different bids and choose of those bids, whichever contractor has the best reputation. This has worked beautifully for me. I had 3 big cottonwood trees that had to come down. I took a picture of each tree, circled it on there, said, hey, get a tree service out here to cut them down, haul them away. Fantastic. I love that she did that for me because it had been on my mind for 6 weeks and I never took action to get that stuff done because the other things that I had on my mind were more important than cutting down the tree. However, had I not given that over and we had our 100-mile-an-hour windstorm that winter, guess where those trees would have ended up? On my house. So the fact that I was able to just hand that over and give it when it wasn't an emergency allowed me to de-escalate the situation before it became an emergency that I had to deal with. How many times in your life are there things that you want done that would just be so much easier if you could hand over to somebody else? Here's another big one that I just got my brother Micah Shalansky on board with. Before surge starts, I make sure all my clothes are ironed, starched, back from the laundromat, hanging up in my office or my closet, not my office, and are ready to go. In addition to that, I have an hour-long commute to our Anchorage office because I live in Wasilla, Alaska. So guess what? I want my truck pristine. I want it cleaned. I want to make sure I have everything inside of there that I like as I like it. And so giving that task over, writing it down as a 1-page document and giving it to my executive assistant and says, hey, 4 days before surge starts, I want to make sure my truck is detailed. And also I like to have these snacks and these drinks in my truck in case I'm running or get tied up on the highway. It's a 2-lane highway coming in and out of Anchorage. So if I get tied up on the highway, I want to have these things available for my father and I. Please make sure this happens. And then I give it over and guess what? It gets done and it gets prioritized and put on the schedule. Instead of this running honey to-do list that I'm never going to get done for myself or my spouse unless I take action to hand it over to somebody else because there are other things that they can't do. The executive assistant cannot do that I have to be the one doing. So for me, my executive assistant they do some business tasks and they also do a lot of personal tasks. It's a blend. The way that I organize this is that every single week we have a standing meeting, her and I, and we go through the punch list of what stuff is started, not started, or in progress, or already completed. I keep track of this in a sheet that literally lists the items of the task. So we're on task number 1, task number 2, task number 3, etc. And it comes a running list of all of these tasks. And then I have a status bar, and the status bar says not started, in progress, completed, or waiting on Jamie. And if it's waiting on Jamie, she can filter through those and bring those to my attention and say, hey, listen, I need you to pipe in and give me an answer. Now, before she asks me a question, she always gives me 2 solutions that she's come up with herself. She said, listen, I could do this or I could do that. And then maybe I like those solutions, or maybe I say, I actually just scrap that and let's do this instead. But at least it gives us a format when we're having our meetings. It's not just a chit chat of what's going on in our lives. Instead, it's an opportunity for her to get my direct attention to make executive decisions after she has prepared the information that I have together. Does my executive assistant have access to my credit card? Yep, sure does. This is a person that I trust explicitly to make sure that I am taken care of and that she's doing what I need to be done. She has 2 credit cards. She has my personal card for the personal stuff that needs to happen at my household, and she has my business credit card. She has my business credit card for things that I need to get done on the business side, of course. So as she goes through this has to be an individual that you really trust. If you're trying somebody out for the first time, kind of give them a 60-day, 90-day probationary period before you give them access to a credit card. One of the things I love about on the credit card, it is not a debit card, it is a credit card, is that I put it inside of LastPass or a like password vault system, and then they can access the information. I can turn it on and I can turn it off. Now, could this person just jot down the information and steal my identity? Yeah, 100%. That could definitely happen. But that is the reason why I do background checks on all of my employees. Before you come and work for us, we're going to run a background check. Their online services make this super easy for you, and I really like it. It's worth $200. I use GoodHire. They're a really great online program that I just set up with my employer ID. I give the other person the information. They run educational, they run occupation, they run credit, they'll do drug panelings. They just do everything and give me a report to let me know that at least I have done some due diligence and making sure this person is who I want them to be on paper, or they just didn't get caught. But, beautiful thing about the credit card is you can just flip a switch and turn that bad boy off any second. This person does not have access to my bank information because I don't know a reason that they would need it when everything goes on either my personal card or my business card. With my executive assistant, I trust her explicitly. I guess that wouldn't bother me, but I wouldn't give her something that she didn't she would not ask me for something she did not absolutely need for me. Does she need my passport, my TSA information, my airline reservation information? Yes, 100%. She needs all of that. And so we use that password sharing vault system. And so that way she can have access to what she needs when she needs it. There are also really good executive assistant, virtual assistant programs out there that will align you with somebody that meets your style. And that's another really important value about finding an EA or a VA is that for an executive assistant, I need somebody that's just going to get done. I don't need somebody whose hand I'm going to have to hold every 2 seconds or try to motivate them to do something. I need somebody that accepts orders, knows I'm asking them to do something, and doesn't give me any grief about getting them done. Just says, yes, ma'am, and goes and accomplishes them. And for me, that was more of a personality thing. I needed somebody that was going to be really decisive and really capable. And you can find different companies that will align you. If you'd like a recommendation of one that will do that for you and do the background checks and the screenings and get you interviews with different candidates, then email us at lifestyle@theperfectra.com and we're happy to make a recommendation. If this is your first time hiring an EA or a VA, if you want to consider fractional, go ahead. Like I said, with my executive assistant, I started her off as a part-time worker and it quickly grew into full-time with the more stuff that she was able to take on. Another really great task that always seemed to get passed around in my enterprise registered investment advisory firm in Anchorage, Alaska, was planning client events and social events. So if we were doing a wine tasting or we were doing some type of venue, our relationship managers were really great at orchestrating of putting the venue together, but not great at doing the invitations and the high touches to get them out to people to invite them. And so I plugged my EA in for this particular business task. And I'm like, hey, listen, we're going to throw a wine tasting in April. These are the wines of the different regions that are featured. And I want a really classy way of inviting people, not just a wedding style invitation, but she found little bottles of champagne and little you're invited balloons and are going to use some string to tie it all together. And so that we can deliver these wine tasting invitations to the clients and center of influences that we want to have attend. So they're really good at those type of strategic planning projects and the one-off tasks that, trust me, you probably have more than you think you do. And here's the beautiful part about it. If you try a VA or an EA and give yourself 60 days, not 30, because 30, you're having to do the learning curve. 30 days, you're the one that's the problem. But give yourself 60 to 90 days and then really assess it and look back and say, okay, did this person alleviate a lot of the stresses that I had? Did they take care of a lot of those different chores? And do I have more time? Do I have more time to do the other things that I always put off doing? That is the number one goal of the executive assistant. Are your needs as the executive being met and fulfilled? And then 2, do you find that you have more time to do the things that you want to go do? Not just need to go do, but want to go do. And there's this profound sense of guilt out there for a lot of executives, and you know who I'm talking to if it's you, is going to resonate, is that you don't need someone because you could really just do it all yourself. Of course you can. You didn't get to where you are by not being able to do things. Yeah, you can do all of these things yourself. Of course you can. But the beauty is this person is going to give you back time in your day. And that time could be so that you can spend more time with your spouse, more time with your kids, more time with your pets, or hell, more time by yourself. Maybe reading a book, maybe going on a walk, taking on an extra yoga or Pilates class, or spending more time on the Peloton. It doesn't matter. Did this person give you the gift of time? And that's going to bring us to our first action item. You know, at the Perfect RIA, we are 100% about giving you actionable items that you can do right now to transform your life so you deliver massive value to your clients, spend more time outside the office, and be highly profitable. So action item number 1, over the next couple of weeks, be honest with yourself. Write down a ledger, either spin up a spreadsheet or have a little notebook in front of you and write down all the time sucks in your day. And do not justify, it really wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, it's just a couple minutes. minutes. Oh, it really didn't take me that long to call the tree service and get them arranged to come to my house. But guess what? Calling the tree service to come to my house is only part of the problem. 1, I got to find the tree service. 2, I got to schedule them on my calendar, make sure I don't have any conflicts. 3, I got to be available that day and make sure that I know that that's going to happen. 4, I like to give my neighbors a courtesy that that's also going to happen. So this is multiple steps. And then 5, I got to pay the invoice. So who's going to pay that invoice when it comes in? This wasn't just a 5-minute call. This is now 25 to 30 minutes out of my day, several different times that somebody else can take care of. And in that 25 or 30 minutes, I can go be who I want to be today and in the next 5 years. So action item number 1, get your ledger started, especially if you don't already have somebody sitting in that role as your executive assistant or your virtual assistant. Get your ledger started and be open, honest, and vulnerable about where you're spending your time. Is it checking email? Is it doing follow-up calls? Is it kid pickup and drop off? I mean, really start looking at where you're spending a lot of your time, because then it will help you prioritize the tasks that you want to delegate and also the ones that you want to keep. Action item number 2, hire an executive assistant, hire a virtual assistant. This person could be full-time, this person could be fractional, this person could be part-time. There are a myriad of options out there for you to choose from. You just have to see which one fits you best. And maybe you start where you just think you need 5 hours a week from somebody. Well, great. There are people that want to work 5 hours out of the day. There are people that really want to take ownership of this. And if that increases over time, wonderful, because you're going to work out the kinks. All right, action item number 3, you need to create some type of systemization of explaining to other human beings the things that you want done and how you want them done. Is this you creating a Google document and giving all of your specifications like I talked about with the travel writer, where I want to sit, what airlines, what's my travel number, etc.? Or is this you just turning on Loom and doing a screen recording about every single decision that you're making and validating why you're making those decisions so somebody else can replicate that in the future? I don't know. You choose which style works best for you. When you hire an executive assistant or virtual assistant, part-time, hybrid, or full-time, you are going to find that you're going to have to put in the energy to train this individual, but you only have to put that energy in one time. And then you're just checking on the status of how they're operating and how they're continuing to facilitate. And then every time they're coming back to you with a question, you're documenting how you're going to answer that question. This is the greatest, most strategic thing you can do immediately in your life to free up time. We all want more time. You can get your time back if you take the time to put in to making sure your executive assistant or your virtual assistant has the tools and resources they need to be absolutely world-class at this role. This September, we're going to have a tax summit and a TPR summit in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can go to theperfectra.com to get your tickets. But if you go and get your tickets and you show up at that event and just tell me, oh, Jamie, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. And then I ask you if you have an executive assistant or a virtual assistant and you tell me, no, I've been thinking about getting one, but I just haven't. Do not expect an ounce of sympathy for me. And you just might owe me a drink for having a solution, knowing that solution, and failing to execute on that solution. We have to be effective. We have to take decisions in our own hands to make the changes for the life that we want to lead and the person we want to be, not just today, not just in 12 months, but in 5 years from now. That person that you want to be, that leader, that entrepreneur, that father, that mother, that sibling, whoever that is that you want to be, you have to do the work today to get there. TPR Nation, this has been an episode of Worlds to Conquer. I'm Jamie Shalansky. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect RIA.